I'm in the living room of my house. This is a Kunara gas space heater. I had the builder install this gas space heater in the house when the house was built. So this gas heater is over 20 years old. Several years ago it stopped working. I had a gas plumber come in to see if he could fix it, but it would have needed several $100s of new parts for repairs. So I decided not to fix it. Instead, I had an electric heating and cooling inverter system installed. It is just sitting above this space heater, and it's great because it does both. It heats the house as well as cools the house. But it is time to remove this gas space heater, put insulation beds in, put in a plasterboard, seal it, paint it, and it will look good. One of the things I will have to do is I'm arranging for a gas plumber to come in and cut off the gas pipe from under the floor and cap that pipe under the floor. So join me in this video as I uninstall this gas space heater, cover up the hole, and make it look good. To start, I have to remove this metal strip using a crocodile nose screwdriver. Simply pry open. And the spring clips will release. Same thing the other side. Spring clips. And the electrical cable has been disconnected and the gas supply has been disconnected. As you can see, the electrical plug has been taped up and removed from the power socket for safety. I'll now remove the 3 Phillips head screws. So with the 3 screws on the left and right removed, I can slowly lift the front cover off and remove it. Next step is to remove the main cover. Very simple. Just lift it up and it's out. This is what it looks like in the cavity behind the gas heater. The brick wall. And the flue is at the bottom left, and that will have to be removed as well. The gas plumber, he went under the house and he cut this pipe off from the supply line and he capped the supply line. So there's no gas coming into this pipe now. So I'm going to remove this pipe. Here we are, that's the pipe that's cut. So now that's disconnected, that's good. Phillips head screwdriver to undo this screw which holds it to the strap that secures it to the wall. Now to remove the screw on the left hand side. Now to see if I can jiggle out the whole heater. Here we are. Coming out. So that's the heater out. That's what the wall cavity looks like with the gas heater removed. And from the side, the heater looks like that. And the view from the right hand side. Next step is to remove the tiles. I think the tiles are actually cemented to the timber floor. There's some cement sheets here. So my approach is to come from the back, break the cement sheet, and then from there work underneath the tile. This is the Bosch GOP 18 VEC multi-tool. I've put a blade on it. I'll try and use that to just get under. I'm going to try the multi-tool again. Oh. That looks like a screw initially set to hold the cement sheet down. So far I've removed 2 tiles. Underneath each tile is some sort of a rubbery cement, I may be wrong, and at the bottom is a cement sheet, and the cement sheet is nailed to the timber floor itself at the edges and also in the center positions. I've removed all the nails from this tile. I'll illustrate. Here's a nail. Use a nail extractor. And that's the nail. Using the multi-tool creates a bit of dust, so I will be wearing a mask. And hammering away with the chisel is pretty loud, so I've got my ear protection on and definitely the goggles for eye protection. Last tile to take out. Done, last tile out. There are nails holding this L bracket to the timber floor. I'm going to try and use this chisel to raise this and pull the nail out enough so I can use the nail extractor. Oh, looks like it came out by itself like that. I've cleaned the debris. Now I'll use the multi-tool to try and remove as much of the glue as possible from the timber. There are still patches of glue on the timber. To remove the glue, I will not use a orbital sander because I don't want dust blowing into the house. Instead, I'm gonna hand sand it, and I have here 3 grades of 75mm sanding belt. That's grade 40, which is the coarsest I have, grade 100, and grade 240, the finest I have. They're all sanding belts past the expiry date, so I do not want to use them, because otherwise if I do use them, the glue on the belts can fail and then the belt gets jammed in my belt sander. So that has happened before, and that's why I'm not doing it. I'm using these as just hand sanding belts. It's actually a very high quality sanding paper made in Germany, Klingspor, grade 40. I've sanded this portion in grade 40 paper. You can see this is much better than that. If I do anything other than along the grain, it leaves marks. So I will sand only along the grain. The floor has now been sanded with grit 40 sandpaper as well as grit 100 sandpaper. It is much better. Before I sand it with the final grit 240 sandpaper, I'll need to plug this hole here with 2 timber cylinder blocks that I drilled out from an existing floorboard, but it is not the same type of wood. The hole actually goes in at an angle like this, and the grain of the wood runs along this way. So what I've done is I've drilled the wood so that it's sloping at an angle whilst the grain runs across this way, so that it will fit in that way. I'd rather have a bigger diameter so that I can sand it down with a belt sander and fit it tightly. So this is the piece of wood, the outside diameter I want to sand, and I'll be wearing my safety goggles and ear protection. I've finished sanding the 2 pieces of filler wood plug, so they look like that, and they'll fit like this. It's not a perfect fit, but with some filler I should be able to get them to the correct height and fill the gaps. And I use this wood screw just to hold them or pull them out. This is timber made, water based wood filler, pine color. That's what the pine color looks like. This is a type of wood filler I already have, so I'm not going to go out and buy wood filler just for this. What I'll do is fill the hole in the bottom of the plug with the wood filler first and around the sides. A bit of a scrap steel pin I have, use it to push the wood filler in. Same thing for the second wood plug. Second wood plug also filled at the bottom. To apply wood filler to the top surface of the wood plugs and have the wood filler as close as possible to the color of the timber floor, I will add a little bit of this marble colored wood filler to more of this pine colored wood filler to see if I can darken this slightly. I think it is working. It looks more brownish rather than yellowish, which is closer to the color of the timber floor. Yeah, if you look at that roughly, that looks more like the timber floor. Mix it up better. I think that looks pretty good. Alright, I'll now insert the bottom plug. Now for the top plug. I think that looks pretty decent. Now I'll mix more of the wood filler to fill up all these nail holes. This is the second batch of wood filler I've mixed in color for the nail holes. I filled all the holes, so now just to let it dry before I sand it. It's been 24 hours since I applied the wood filler, so now I'm gonna sand it. The floor is now been sanded to the final grit 240, so that's what the wood plugs look like. Next step is to install timber studs behind this so that the wall plasterboard can be supported against that timber stud. Good, that's not going anywhere. That's good, that's very rigid. Now I'll cut two more timber studs, one here and one here. Well, that's what the hole looks like now with the timber studs on all four sides so that the plasterboard can sit against it as a backing. I have some spare wall insulation sheet. I'll put it into that hole before I put the wall insulation bats in. It's time to measure and cut the drywall board. So I've measured and marked on the front side of the board, and I'll need a sharp blade to cut from the front side. Just have to be very careful when working with a sharp blade. Here we are, that's the cut sheet. I've put 15mm plastic window shims on the left side and 10mm window seams on the right side to bring the replacement sheet to the height of the existing drywall. This side is a little bit too tight, so I will shave off the existing drywall edge here. So after shaving off some of the edges on the existing drywall, it now fits. I will now smooth out the edges and create some sort of a bevel. This is the 240 grit sandpaper. This is Uni-Pro multi-purpose filler for indoors. I will apply that all along the edges before I push in the replacement drywall sheet. That way I know for sure that the gaps are filled. This product comes with a little plastic spatula. Now to insert the sheet itself. This is the drywall screw. I will now apply the screws to the sheet. What I need to do now is let it dry before I put joiner paper along the joints. The filler has dried now. It's a little bit lumpy in some areas, so I'm just gonna sand it down a little bit. And by the way, I realize the way I'm doing things may not be how a professional would do it, but that's okay as long as it's logical steps. And I think I understand why the drywall was fitted by the professionals above, so that it does not sit on the timber floor. For one thing, if there's water that seeps on the floor for whatever reason, a water leak, it's not going to get soaked up by the drywall and damage it. Before I tape the seams, I might as well put a few screws into the base. Now to apply some filler to the seams before I apply the joining tape. This is the perforated paper joining tape. There is a middle line crease in it, and the crease is indented this side and pointed outwards this side. So if I fold it where the crease is pointing outwards, that direction goes into the wall. So make sure the crease goes along the line of the join. Alright, that's good. That looks okay, and I will now fill up these screw holes. Time to let it dry. It's been several hours now, it's definitely dry. I will do a bit of sanding to smoothen edges out. Must be careful not to shred the actual joining paper. I'm not gonna paint it yet because the rest of the wall needs to be repainted to a different color, so there's no point in my painting this repaired portion. I finished with the drywall. What I will do next is apply this Watson sanding sealer to the floor. Note that the sanding sealer has a very strong smell. So to protect myself, I'm using this P2 grade dust, mist and fume face mask. This is the face mask here. I'm using a carbon fiber arrow shaft to stir the sanding sealer liquid. Have to stir it because at the bottom of the liquid is the sealing material. That looks much better. There's no more clumps of the base material. I have a clean piece of rag. It has now been 6 hours since I applied the first coat of Watson sanding sealer. It is definitely dry now. How do I know whether I need one coat of sanding sealer or 2 coats? I can do a test, and the test is to select a small portion of timber, say here, to sand it with 240 grit paper and to sand it gently, and then to use my hand and feel if it is smooth. If it is still not smooth, then I can apply a second coat of sanding sealer. I'm going to sand it along the grain. The white powder is from the filling material of the sanding sealer. Running my hands across this surface that I've now slightly sanded, it is definitely smooth compared to this surface here. So I would say that it does not need a second coat. So I'll proceed to sand the remainder of the timber floor. Yes, that feels nice and smooth. So that's good. This is Cabot's Woodcraft Stain. The tint is Country Baltic. I've applied some on a earbud and I'm going to test it on the filler. See if it will darken the filler a bit. We'll just let that dry, see what that does. I applied some Woodcraft Stain Country Baltic tint to this wood fill plug as well as a small part of the floor here, and that looks reasonably close to the original timber on this side. I will use the remainder of this Country Baltic stain for the rest of the floor. I will use a piece of clean rag to apply the stain. Now I'll let it settle for about 3 minutes before I give it a circular motion wipe with a clean cloth to wipe off excess stain. Now to use another clean lint-free cloth to wipe off excess. Okay, the excess is wiped off. It has been 45 minutes since I applied the stain. I can now apply the second coat of stain. That's more than enough. Now I'll wait about 3 to 5 minutes for the stain to settle before I use a clean cloth to wipe off the excess. It's been 5 minutes since my second coat of stain, so I will use a clean cloth to wipe off the excess stain. Okay, that's good. Instead of applying a top coat of polyurethane, I will use hard burnishing oil, clear, which is based on genuine tung oil. And the instruction says for best results, find sand timber to minimum 400 grit prior to applying oil. Because I have previously sanded to grit 240, for that reason I will apply 600 grit paper and then I'll clean the dust off. I will use a clean rag. I just applied some of the burnishing oil on this portion as a test. It's now dry. It looks okay. So I'll now apply it to the remainder of the floorboard. Now to let it dry. This is what the timber floor looks like now after I let the first coat of hard burnishing oil dry overnight. The can has two sets of instructions, one for low sheen matte finishing and one for high patina satin finishing. This second set of instructions is where one wants to achieve a satin finish, whereas I only want to achieve a matte finish. And so for the matte finish, the instructions are to apply 2 coats a minimum of 24 hours apart. It is essential to brush or rub in and off excess surface oil within 1 hour of final application. I will now apply a second coat without sanding. Alright, I think that is enough. I'll let it settle for 5 minutes and wipe off excess. Well, I've finished now. The drywall is installed, the skirting board is installed, and the timber floor has been oiled. I hope you found this video interesting and helpful. Do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more and help the channel grow. Thank you so much.